Hello and welcome to the Catch Love Coaches Corner. I'm Kale Coach and Program Director Melissa, and this week I'm honored to introduce the replay of episode 39 of the Coaches Corner featuring U.S. Marine Corps veteran Todd Taylor. We thank Todd for sharing his story and his plight with us all today. We thank ID Technologies for their support of this Coaches Corner podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the Coaches Corner podcast. Now, sit back and let's hear from Todd.
Thanks, Todd, welcome. Thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We've been certainly excited for this one. And like I said, man, there's so much to cover you. Let's jump right in. Todd, let's start kind of, with the military. How did this come about? How did you end up becoming a Marine?
I come from a very military strong family. Both my grandfathers were in World War II. One was Navy World War II. The other was in the Army. The one in the Army was actually in Korea as well. So it kind of dug in deep there. And then a cousin I looked up to he was always like a big sports guy, lifted weights and stuff, joined the Army before 9/11. And I think it was around that time I was like, you know what, that's something I'm going to do. And of course, you go through do I want to go Army? Do I want to be a Navy SEAL?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all the Hollywood
yes
stuff. And so yeah, I mean, it was just kind of something I'd always knew I was going to do. Just wound up deciding to go to the Marine Corps office, just walk down the strip. That's the one that stood out to me, and here I am.
That's awesome. What year was that, Todd, or when did you enlist?
I joined the delayed entry program in 2004.
Okay, so we were pretty close to the same time, you and I.
Yeah, and then after I graduated high school in 2005 is when I went.
Okay. Todd, talk to us about, after basic, moving forward and, going into your deployment. What did that look like for you?
Oh, man. Nonstop training. So Marine Corps boot camp, and then we go to the infantry training. I went to infantry route when I first went in. And immediately going into my first unit, I got there around June. We trained, and then March we deployed to Fallujah, Iraq. And then we came back, trained again, did the MEU. The MEU was fun. My second deployment, that was a booze cruise,
Yeah.
Flew around, went to Israel, Sicily, Spain, all that stuff. And then, so yeah, it was a lot of working up and training.
Okay.
And I actually got married before that second deployment.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you deployed that second time and you had a wife back home. How long were you in the Marines, Todd?
Almost 9 years.
Wow. What did that transition look like for you after 9 years of Marines?
So because I was a recruiter my last 3 years, I was able to do a lot of networking. And got my resume out and started talking to people when I decided that, transitioning, getting out's what I want to do. And I just got real lucky, to be honest with you. Originally, I was just going to continue on. I'd applied for like Gavin DeBecker, independent security type stuff, or executive security.
Right.
I had done all the pre-employment stuff for Texas State Trooper.
Okay.
And then I only applied for one like non-security job, and they were the ones that hooked me first. And then I went on terminal leave on a Friday and started my new job on a Monday.
Oh my gosh.
And I was doing it was kind of a QA role in an engineering firm.
Okay.
And just helping establish process and make sure all of the stuff was looking right before we send it to the client.
Right.
And then like 2 months later, DPS gets back and they're like, hey, we want you to come to the academy. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. How would you kind of, because it sounds like you did quite a bit before you even got out of the military to kind of support that transition. Would you say that, Todd? Or like what do you think what helped you the most during that time? Because not that your transition, I'm not saying was, smooth and you didn't hit hiccups, but I mean, you got out there pretty quick.
I think because I have a family getting out, like my priority was I was just going to do whatever needed to be done to pay the bills. You know what I mean? but I was very proactive through the process and started reaching out to other local vets, a lot of Marine Corps League, stuff like that,
Okay.
and just getting in touch with people who were already out and trying to just get my name out there and find out what there was,
Right. So how did you end up back like in the school realm of things, Todd? How did education come back on the radar for you?
Oh my God. Well, first and foremost, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I told myself I wasn't going to be a recruiter because I hated the quota. I hated just, you're a rock star and you made the quota for the month. And then 5 minutes later, what do you got for next month?
Yeah.
And I didn't care for it. And I was at my first job for about 3 years before getting laid off. And I just kept getting hit with oil and gas companies wanting to do military recruiters, stuff like that. So that's kind of how it got started. After I got laid off in 2017 or 18, I was laid off for less than a month.
Okay.
And I had a phone call from a guy that found me on Recruit Military. I'd updated all my stuff on there, of course. So I went over there, started their recruiting program. They had somewhat of a process. So I just established a process I knew from the Marine Corps, just kind of systematic,
Yeah.
And I started working with a local nonprofit called Next Stop Vets. And what they do is they help transitioning vets get jobs in oil and gas. I'm an oil and gas.
Right.
So in this process, I was like, man, I actually enjoy this. It's not like you're going to work and you have those stressors of you need to make numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was really happy because I was helping all these other guys find something on their search out,
And was that all vets then that you were dealing with at that time, Todd? Was it staff or just okay?
That was just kind of something I took on my own.
Okay.
Just because I saw an opportunity to help.
Yeah.
And so in the process, I'm like, okay, I'm very much a leadership-minded person. And in the realm of talent acquisition, you don't go anywhere without a degree. And I've been anti-degree up to that point. There's no reason you can't be a successful person in that one.
Yeah.
And then that's what kind of got me jumped into it. A retired master sergeant of mine, he told me about Colorado State and how they allow you to use a lot of your military experience. And I'd done a couple of programs up to that point, but that counts all towards electives. So, looking at it and sitting down with a career planner, I was able to come up with a plan to knock it out in 2 years. And
that's so awesome.
While working a full-time job.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been nuts.
So how was your time like that? It sounds like U of Colorado was very veteran friendly. Is that a school you would recommend for other vets to take a look at if they're looking to get back into school or kind of explore their options?
Yes. Usually I still, because I'm active on LinkedIn, put on their transitioning career coach, stuff like that. And I don't mind helping with resumes, interviews, what have you. But if somebody's talking about, hey, would schooling help? That's the first thing I recommend because your GI Bill pays for it. And if you're able to go to somewhere like that recognizes all this extra training and you don't have to take just BS classes. Let's be real. Right. A lot of it's, if it's not your major, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And that's just kind of my thoughts on it. So if you do it, and I've recommended it to other people, it's very veteran friendly. They evaluate your courses and certifications, and you can get it done in 2 years, and then use the rest of your GI Bill for a graduate program or something.
And so you would go on to do that pretty much immediately after earning that bachelor degree. Todd, talk to us about that decision to continue on with the higher education and what that looked like.
Yeah, I hadn't even officially got my diploma back yet. And I'd wrapped up all my classes. And of course there's that gap between when they confirm your degree or whatever. And I was like, you know what was hindering me at the time, I was with National Oil Varco. And what was hindering me was I had the recruiting experience. I had the people skills, but I lacked business acumen, no business. I mean, obviously I do my own stuff, but that's not it's not professional business.
Yeah.
Hey, I can make this type stuff. But so I was like, you know what? I think an MBA would be good. I had enough of my GI Bill left to do so. And I went through 3 different universities, and I wound up kind of jumping the gun on it because I just wanted to get it done, and went with Houston because they had openings and I knew I could get in immediately. So
Right.
literally graduation was in June of 2019. Yeah. And class started in August.
Wow.
The MBA program.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a quick turnaround there. And tell us, when are you getting ready to graduate now?
May, thank God.
May. Wow.
Last class is in April, so.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, we're so happy for you in that regard, Todd, definitely. Looking at this journey you've taken with the schooling and everything, what would you say is the most satisfying part of pursuing this MBA?
For me, I think it's really because I'm the only one in my family to go to college.
Yeah.
So I'm the only one of 3 siblings to graduate high school. The only one out of all my immediate family to go get my undergrad, and I'm the only one out of my entire family that has pursued past that. Because I mean, a lot of them have done associates and nursing and stuff like that, but I think for me,
so
that's
awesome.
satisfaction, just continuing to be different and excel in a different way, and show the nephews and nieces and my daughter, like, look, you don't have to allow your circumstances in life, just because you come from a poor family and what have you, doesn't mean you can't raise the bar and establish objectives for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things, I love watching you on Instagram, Todd. You've always got so much going on, it seems like. And one of the questions that always hits my head, like, I see you doing all this different stuff and pursuing these different passions. And I'm like, where does Todd find the time? Todd, you're a father, you're a student, you work, you lift weights, you motocross. I mean, we're going to get into all of this in a bit, but how do you manage your day, Todd? What does it look like for you?
I'm fortunate to have a flexible work schedule. I'll start with that. But I get up at 5:30 usually, and then take the kid to school. And then after she's dropped off at school, I go to work. Hit the gym at lunch. So usually I leave the office at 11. I'm at the gym. God forbid I have a meeting at lunch, which I might have to. I'll adjust my schedule accordingly. But so I hit the gym at lunch, come home, or no, I leave early to get my daughter and help her with homework. And then on Mondays and Thursdays, I have class from 5:30 to 9:30. And what I'll do is I knock out all my homework that night. Just that way I don't have to worry about the rest of the week. And then motocross is on the weekends. That's something I do with my daughter. So usually on a Saturday or Sunday, we'll go ride. And the other weekdays, if I have something going on, is usually when I'll start doing other projects, leatherwork, knives, whatever.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in there, like get free time. I don't know.
I mean, like you decompress in there somewhere. Like
Sundays is usually rest day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon is, barbecue and just kind of relax.
Yeah. Tell us about your daughter, Todd.
She's 9 and she's a handful. No, she's super smart. She's really interested into space. That's kind of been an ongoing thing with her. We've always kept her engaged in, in Houston, we have all kinds of museums and stuff, and they all have awesome military discounts.
That's cool.
So that's always kept her engaged in. And she, my wife's got this, it's called Master Class, and it's got a lot of like high-end professionals, and they give you the scoop of whatever. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he's an astronaut. And he goes into all this stuff, and he's talking about like how he became an astronaut. And, when you're an astronaut candidate, you're called an ass can. So my daughter's over here watching videos, and we very much carry on conversations that I do with, like we are now. I don't.
Yeah.
She's a kid. She's only a kid, so I try to keep it real.
Yep.
And but she's very much into stuff that's way above most of her peers.
Yeah.
And so and then she's great in school and dirt bikes. She started riding. She wasn't very competitive. And then she had fractured her wrist on a hoverboard. So last weekend was the first time she rode in probably a month.
Oh my gosh.
And we went to a track that was easy, that she really likes. And that's the first time I seen her get competitive. Like, she was doing good. She was going a little bit faster. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then I was like, catch that kid, And I knew she was faster than him. He was brand new. But once she passed him, I would point at the next person, and she just got super competitive.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my gosh.
I doubt her. But she's always improving, and just try to keep her. And she's very much into fitness, so that's something
that's so cool. You two share a lot of that stuff. That's very, very cool. So we'll touch on your daughter some more, but let's start unpacking some of these passions of yours, Todd. Let's start with the motocross. How and why did you get into it?
A year ago exactly is when I actually started doing it. I'd always been interested in it. I went to my first Supercross in 1997. Oh. So I was like, that's what, 9?
Yeah.
9 or 10. I don't know. I was
okay.
Little. And I'd always asked my dad for a dirt bike. We were not in a position to do so. Let's put it that way. So never happened. And I ride motorcycles. And a buddy of mine, his son joined the Marine Corps, and they both ride. And he's like, well, just ride his bike. And I was like, okay. And then I was hooked. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it kind of started as just an outlet, just something to do. But the more I got engaged in it, the conditions are always changing. You're never going to be perfect at it. It's always challenging. You're always growing. And then it even changed my fitness goals. Before, I was just bulking up, and I want to get as big and jacked as possible, even though it's not conducive to life.
Yeah.
And you get out there on the bike and you start riding, you get winded, and it's like, okay, we need to start adjusting training a little bit, put in some cardio here. But no, that's how I got started, and then it's taken off from there. It's a relief for me.
Yeah.
At the end of the week, I've got something to look forward to at the end of the week.
I like that. Yeah.
It's just different. It's challenging, but it's a great stress relief at the same time.
That's so cool. Talk to us a little bit about what it means to you to be able to have this common interest that you're able to share with your daughter in the motocross.
It's amazing because it's something I struggled with. I got out of the Marine Corps because when I started recruiting duty, she was 1. And those 3 years, I was never home. I was, up in the morning early to go PT, and then you get home late at night, she's in bed. So that had a lot to do with my decision to get out. And then part of my transition, I was having issues, just the normal stuff we have issues with. Yep. And the biggest one for me was trying to find common ground with my daughter. Yeah. And, being a dad for the Marine Corps, where everything's, suck it up and stop.
Yeah, right.
And then a girl's emotional, it doesn't work with her. And I've tried to get her involved in other stuff. And this is the one thing that we both have common ground on. On Saturdays, we'll watch Supercross together. She likes watching the videos and stuff like that. So it's really cool to at least have some common ground with her.
Yeah.
That we both enjoy doing. And I think that's why I don't push her to race like a lot of parents do. I don't want to ruin it and make it like a chore.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to compete in something like that. So.
Yeah. What would you say, Todd, to other parents, really fathers or mothers that, post-service, they found it hard to connect with their children, or they're looking for that common ground? What would your advice be to them?
Keep trying. You've known me for a while, so I pick up stuff a lot, and just keep trying to find that thing that interests them and don't be pushy. Just my opinion, I have a lot of friends with kids, and the thing I see fail the most is mom was a cheerleader. Want your kid to be a cheerleader, and the kid doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So just try to find a common ground that they have interest in with you, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's definitely difficult. But I think, like you said, just keep chipping away at that definitely, and
Yeah.
find that thread between you where you can really connect. Yeah. Talk to us. I want to talk about now, like the knife forging and the leather work, and kind of where that's all came into your life and how that began.
Okay. It all started with the knife work. My uncle came to visit, and he had all these knives he made, and he gave me one, and he was telling me how he made it. And I thought, man, that is really cool. And I'd never watched the Forge in the Fire stuff at that time. And I'm one of those people that, like, if I see somebody else can do it, I'm like, you know what, I think I could do that.
Yeah, totally.
And so I did it. I just, started watching videos on how to build a propane forge. And my wife wasn't happy, like the money I invested.
Did you build it? Did you build your own forge? That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
Like, it was a good bit of money and material and stuff, like, just to get started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for him, it didn't cost him as much because he lives out in the country, and he's like, hey, give me your old lawnmower blade and use that. But so anyways, I got started doing that. Started making some knives. First ones were crappy. It happens.
Yep.
And then they started getting better and better. And I'm like, okay. And then I was like, all right. So I've got this knife making stuff down, and people were wanting them.
Yeah.
For gifts or whatever. And then I think I did 2 for Cal to fundraise with.
Yep.
And so then I'm like, okay, you got to put the knife in something, because there weren't pocket knives. They were like regular handled little tang knives. And I looked online. I just didn't care for anything they had. It was just cheap $10 leather that was, garbage stamped, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I got to figure out this leather stuff. And it became hand in hand, where, once you start making one thing out of leather and you start looking around you, and you're like, oh man, I can make a mouse pad. I can make, like, you just start going down the laundry list of things that you can make from leather. Maybe you don't see them or notice them. So that became I started doing this before dirt bikes, but it's became my funding source for dirt bikes, pretty much.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Sport. So, it's been slow with COVID, but nonetheless, I mean, I actually had a guy call today. He got a really cool, I forgot what it was. It was an old Ruger. And he said that he called the local leather place, and I put a card up there. And I get some calls that people are, it's handmade leather. Like, I'm at a point now to where my stuff's, I try to charge for the quality I put into it and the time. But I'll get stuff like that where he wants a gun scabbard for this rifle.
Cool.
And so, I'll talk with him, and it lets me be creative and put my ideas together and, put something together. And obviously I stress more over it than they do, because I know every little, like, just detail that might not be perfect. And, but usually I don't think I've had somebody that didn't like it.
Yeah.
Or at least they didn't tell me. So,
so once you started with the knives, so you had the knives, and you're like, all right, I need sheaths, and so you're going to learn the Leatherworks. How did you learn to do the Leatherworks? Was this like you're researching on your own, like books, YouTube? Like, how did you tackle that?
All of it was YouTube University.
I love it.
So I, with the knives, I went through, and I was, just a homemade knife sheath, and I watched a couple of people make them. And my first ones, like, looking at them now, they're garbage. Like, I would not sell that. It was just a very simple approach. It was just folded over leather like a taco, sew the corners, and then I had a customer come back, is like, hey, the knife's so sharp, it's cutting the leather threading.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, so now I got to figure out this other piece, add a buffer here, and that worked. And then it's like, well, I'm kind of getting tired of this fold look. It doesn't
Yeah.
look cool. So then you start actually drawing the templates and stuff. And I've always done artwork. I've always drawn since I was a kid. So it allows me to kind of tap into that. And then the tooling thing, that's probably what took me the longest to figure out, is just, taking a design, how to transfer it or draw it, how to transfer it onto the leather, and then cutting it and stamping it out. It takes time. It's time.
Do you do all that yourself? Do you do the tooling on the leather and everything you do? So from start to finish?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I think I got some spare leather somewhere. So just from a piece of leather that you buy at the store, a leather store, and it just looks like a side of a cow. I guess is the nicest way to put it. And then a template that you draw, just from start to finish, from cutting it to putting your design on it, get the design done, stain it, color it, then you got to thread it and sew it, and it's a process.
Time wise on a leather sheath, and I'm obviously sure it depends how much you're doing on it, but just an average one that you're doing, how much time are you putting into a single piece?
Jeez. If it was bare bones, if it was just cutting out the template, no design on it really, it would still take probably 3 hours. And then if you're actually going to do some artwork, like I have someone did some really nice artwork on, depending on the artwork, some of those you'll spend 6 hours from start to finish. Like,
wow. Yeah, you're putting some time in that.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing though, is I do it because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But you tend to enjoy doing stuff for yourself more than others. So if people like a guy called me wanting a knife sheath and he didn't want anything fancy on it, I'm like, well, this is what I would charge. And it was probably about 3 times what you're going to pay on the internet.
Yep.
Because like you said, like I was saying, I got to buy the leather, I got to do a template. And he's like, oh, well, I thought it was going to be like $20. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah.
That doesn't even cover material for me, So.
What about looking at forging a knife, Todd? And again, I'm sure size and everything dictates, but kind of time-wise, what's it take to forge a knife?
I think it depends. First, it's going to depend if you legit forge it and what you're forging out of.
Okay.
Or if you do a stock removal. I've started doing, after I proved I could forge one, I do a lot more stock removal because it's faster, where you're pretty much taking an already flattened strip.
Okay.
You're cutting out the shape, and then you're just more shaping it with a grinder and a belt sander and stuff. That one I can do a lot faster. Because still, when you put the handles on, the handles are usually just blocks of wood. They're just real squared and not pretty, and all that gets hand sanded down. One of those will take, I don't know, maybe 10 hours.
Wow.
And if you hand forge it, go ahead and add a couple more hours to that. Because like I said, it depends. Like you watch the show, you're using ball bearings, and I don't have a freaking air hammer. It's all, 3 pound hammer. Yeah, a hammer on an anvil. It's
Wow.
So it depends, but
that's so cool. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of people listening that have thought about this type of thing. Like, I want to forge knives. I want to do leather work, something like that. Todd, what kind of advice do you have for people listening that, this has been on their mind, but they don't think they have it in them maybe, or, they don't think they have the time or resources? What do you tell them if they're interested in this?
Just do it. When it comes to resources, you got to think outside the box. So the first knife I made I forged it out of a railroad tie that I found out.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then the handle on it was some soft pine, which you shouldn't use because it's soft. But just to get it down, what I mean? Just to see if I could do it. And then just watch the videos. I mean, because you put the pins through the handles, usually use like brass pins, and you can buy them online. They're not super expensive. I didn't have them. So I had old drill bits in my toolbox and just used they're round.
It
You know what
work.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'll just drill a hole in it, epoxy it, stick it through, and it works. That would be my recommendation. Just do it.
Yeah.
Think outside the box. If you don't know how and it's something you want to do, for me, it's always been money. Like everything, I started airbrushing because I wanted something cool in a cup, and I didn't want to pay somebody else the $80 to do it. I was like, I'd rather spend that time learning just myself. I'm just that kind of person, I guess.
Yeah.
So everything for me has usually been, I didn't want to pay somebody else. I just want to do it myself.
Yeah.
And then you end up paying them because you're like, I don't want to do this no more. But
that is how that goes. Yeah.
that would be my advice. Just do it. And I mean, if you fail, you're going to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some crappy knives that I keep back here in my knife box that to me, they're complete failures. But it's a reminder of, I have some really nice ones that I've done and they have polished finishes on them. And then I have that one,
Yeah.
So just over time, you'll get better.
It's kind of like how you just described that though, Todd. It reminds me of training, and where we kind of always come back to the importance of, logging your workouts, take progress pictures, because again, and the same thing with this passion of yours, you might not be able to see the difference from where you started to where you are now, or from week to week or month to month. But I'll damn well bet when you open up that old knife box and you look at your first ones, you're like, holy shit, I've came a long way.
Yeah.
And that's pretty dang cool. That's so awesome. Todd, do you have a website or anything? Or if anybody, wanted to look at your knives or contact you about that, is there a way for them to do it?
I have a Facebook page. It's Taylor Forged.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You guys check out Todd's stuff. It's absolutely wonderful. How has, the leather work, the motocross, the forging of the knives, how have those things aided in your recovery?
So I don't remember if we were talking about this on the podcast or before we were chatting, but usually I'll go to work at lunch to just to de-stress. I still have a couple more hours I got to deal with people.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have that coworker that's like that private, and you want to strangle them, but you can't because you don't want to eat them.
Yeah.
For me, it's similar to that because especially like the knife making, the leatherwork, it's still physical.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot more creativity involved. So it allows me to kind of get outside of my head instead of, a lot of times I would struggle. I would come home from work. I've already had my workout in and I know I've logged it. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't need to work out no more. Like I'm already exhausted and I have a plan for tomorrow to kill myself again. And I need some sort of relief that's not related to school, work. And maybe it's outside of, usually I try to separate my evening times if I have something going on, where I have family time with the family, then this is usually later when the kid goes to shower and stuff and the wife's reading her book.
Yeah.
Up here in the garage and, throw some Metallica on and beat on some leather or metal. But it's an escape just to get away from the chatter, I guess is a good way to put it. So it's just another escape for me.
Yeah.
And the motocross is even more physical. So, because like I said, then I came back to, okay, now I've got to change how I do this. Because when I started riding, when I saw you last, when I came out to Boston or Baltimore, wherever it was, I don't remember. I was like 240.
Yeah.
And I'd been lifting heavy. Like that was my goals. I just wanted to put on some mean mass. And, of course, up against Justin, I like tiny, but everybody looks tiny up against him.
But no, yeah. Yeah.
But then when I started riding, I'm like, this is not going to work. Yeah. Like, the bodybuilding style lifting is it's not functional. And I would go out and do 2 laps and be gassed and winded and come back off. And I'm like I'm in good shape in this way, but I'm not functional in this way.
Yeah.
So the motocross actually stepped it up to where it's a weekly part of my life in that sense.
So it was really interesting, Todd, when I got to talk to you again, when we were prepping for this show, because something I would have never thought about primarily because I don't do it. I don't ride motocross, but, you talked about that and the physical demand of it, because
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, oh, you get on a bike and go ride fast, right? It's like,
Exactly.
no. And so you've touched on it some already because, right, when I met you, you were super into bodybuilding, trying to get as big as you could. So talk to us like in the gym, how your training actually changed and how you change that training, to support your motocross racing.
I would say, first of all, just like with any gym program or fitness program you're going to do, you establish your goals. And I didn't want to lose all the muscle mass, but I wanted to turn it functional and increase my cardio. So I actually started doing more cardio. I kind of became one of those guys who was like, I don't need cardio, I just lift weights faster,
Yeah.
So that was the first one. Is now my routine is 2 days a week is like extreme hit cardio. And usually I do that on a bicycle because it's the closest I can get my max heart rate when I'm on the bike.
Okay.
Because on the bike, I think my heart rate would max. I was like 190, 187. Yeah.
Wow.
And so on a bicycle, like road bike, when you're doing those hit trainings, that's the closest you're going to get when it comes to cardio. We're actually going to push it.
Yeah.
And then the second part is a lot more core. Because, like you said, I said, like, jump on dirt bikes, go fast. Just throttle, let it rip.
Just let it go.
But what you don't realize is, your feet are turned in and you're gripping with your legs, and you want all your weight supported on your legs like you're doing a squat. So your back's kind of down, and you don't want no weight on your arms because you want to be able to keep this free to work the controls and turn and stuff. And if you're pushing your weight on it, then you're going to wreck.
Yeah.
I spent my first 3 months like practicing falling down pretty much. I was going slow. Like I wasn't going fast.
Still though.
But that just like once you understand all those functionalities that you have to be able to do, and then keeping your mind sharp is the other one. So my workout, I prolonged them to where on a strength day, it's usually 20 minutes of cardio, doing some sort of hit. Usually on those cardio days are usually like high incline. So it's slow progressive, gets my heart rate up and maintains that. And then I'll go and do a core circuit. And usually it consists of, a wall ball toss, doing V sit-ups, kettlebell. Usually I put 4 together, and I try to keep my rep range around 20 to 30.
Okay.
Each one. I only do 3 sets, but the whole goal is to be close to 300 when you're done and keep your heart rate up. And then you get to go actually lift weights and kind of go slow and take your breath. And then I keep that the same. It's just a typical, and try, back by, leg split.
Yep.
And then on leg days, it's not heavy legs like I used to do a lot. It's more of very high rep, because for me, I'm really working to, not only maintain the core, but you're using your legs as suspension the whole time.
Right.
So just imagine doing like hack squats nonstop for like 10 minutes straight.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, barf. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that bad, but realistically, that's what's going through my mind when I'm doing it. So it was a total shift in workout. And diet wise, I went from trying to consume as many calories as possible, and a lot of it was liquid calories, to trying to have solid food. I mean, I do my intermittent fasting, which helps I feel like it helps with the leanness a little bit, but also helps with my appetite. And then
what are you currently using for a fasting window, Todd?
I don't remember the exact times. So no later than 6 p.m. And then I usually don't eat until 11 or 12.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
Since I started riding and decided to cut weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was miserable at first. Like it sucked hardcore. You get up in the morning, and I'm not a strict diet person. Like I was the guy that I work out because I want to eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to have that bowl of ice cream after a carb fueled dinner of spaghetti and toast. Um, so usually in the morning, what I'll typically do is I'll drink coffee just to kind of put something in my stomach,
Yeah.
uh, kind of fuel me a little bit. But that works until after I hit the gym. And usually my workouts are on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to ask you too, Todd, since you've started riding motocross, like either in the gym or riding, like have you dealt with any injuries or kind of any nagging pains like that you've had to kind of train around or figure out how to deal with?
yes, the biggest one is I broke my left ankle, my tib and fib. Right as a guy in the Marine Corps, I have bad knees, and then of course lower back. And I was telling you about Coach Rob. I pulled his stuff up, but I don't see his last name. So, anyways, he's a MX coach,
Okay.
and his two big things were, sleep and diet, and then working through those weaknesses. So instead of giving up, like I quit running when I broke my ankle,
Yeah.
and that's when I was like, I'm just going to get jacked. Like,
Yeah.
just get. Instead of giving up on that, working through it. So then I don't run anymore because it is painful, but I cycle, and it's very low impact and has worked through um, the biggest motion I need out of my ankle when riding is I need
Okay.
that dorsiflex where your foot comes up. Because
Yep.
you're riding, say if this is your foot and this is the ball and this is the arch, you want your ball to be on that peg, so you want to be able to flex when you're hitting jumps and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest one, was working through that. And I didn't have proper PT after I broke that ankle a few years ago.
Right.
So started doing that, started working with bands and stuff at home and stretching it. And then just doing just body lifts, you know what I mean? Just actually the hardest freaking thing was single leg squats.
Oh, those are brutal.
And I would use the squat machine. That way I could kind of hold myself and then put my leg back. It helped with my core. It helps with my angle flexion. It helps with my knees. Those were the two biggest ones, and then lower back.
Yeah.
And I learned that by doing more core and more just body weight lower back stuff.
Yeah.
When I first go out, I'll do my first 4 laps. Usually I try to do an 8-minute warm up, and it's just form. It's just making sure my feet are right, my back's right, getting that arch and stuff. So by focusing on those at the gyms helped me tremendously through that too. So.
And that's interesting too, again, because I don't do it. Something else I never thought of, like that warm up on the bike, like that, Todd, when you get out there riding for motocross. So you do a warm up where you're actually riding. Do you do a physical one off the bike before you start riding too? Do you have any type of warm up or mobility you do before you even get on the bike to go ride the track?
Yeah, I would do like stretches, like static or whatever, and then just to kind of get yourself warmed up, and then definitely stretching on the legs, so that way you're not going out there cold. But when I go out in the warm up too, though, like I'll do the stretching stuff before, and then when you go out, you're riding like 50%. You want to get a view of what the track's going to look like, and then kind of going through your head and making sure everything's right. And I mean, like last weekend, my shoulder was giving me issues, so I did a lot more shoulder stretching when I came off. So
that's awesome. Very cool. Todd, I want to finish up today and talk about Catch Lift with you, because I know that Catch Lift, has had a big impact on your life. How did you originally hear about Catch Lift, or what made you decide to apply to the program?
When I first got out, I didn't have access to a gym facility or workout, and that was a big part of my life. In the Marine Corps is something I've done all the time. And I was going through some issues just with transition in general. I mean, you go in from, I can talk to somebody like I'm talking to you now, to I've got to be more PC. I got to watch.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And then you kind of feel ostracized, like nobody gets you. You're different, whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
And I can't remember. I think it was a guy down the road had said something about it, and he's like, "It's a new program. Just check it out." I was like, "Okay." And I'd submitted, and I think it was 2014 or 15. Yeah. And it took a while to hear back. And I was like, okay, like maybe I didn't meet the criteria or something. And then once I heard back though, it gave me that a reason to get back in the gym, because that short period of time I was just, you feel lost.
Yeah.
So Cal got me back in the gym, got me working out, and once as times progressed, I started using my knife and leather work to give back. So I've done catch a lift mouse pads. I did 2 knives, I think, and and then even now, like I'm still participating in it, but hopefully, and I've expressed this to Lynn and some of the others when I was at the event. Um, my goal is once I finish my MBA to give more time back to the program. I mean, it's kept me sane through all the really good stuff.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
But I feel like once I'm done with that, I'll be able to kind of give back a little bit more. And I still do a lot with other vets. So there's a veteran motocross thing. I have
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Vet MX, and what they do is they reach out to vendors and stuff and get sponsorships. So
Very cool. Okay.
they help relieve some of the costs to buy the gear.
Yeah. That's awesome. Todd, if you feel comfortable with it, would you mind touching on for us? I know through your time in the program, you've been able to drop a lot of meds.
Yes.
Would you touch on that for us?
Yeah. So as I'm sure most of us have experienced when we got out, and you try to work on yourself, and it's a hard thing to do anyways, because you don't want to admit that you're broken, I guess. And the VA I was trying to work through it and get the help I needed, but every time I go up there, I get more meds.
Yeah.
And there came a point in time where literally I was taking like 11 or 12 medications, and they were being sent in like a little priority box almost.
Yeah.
It wasn't legit like priority UPS, but it was that size of like a small box. And I don't know. I think it was a couple of years into Cal. I was sitting there. I was like, man, like I just didn't feel right. I mean, you already have issues relating to people. You already have issues with your emotions and being emotionally connected. And here I am with a daughter. And it's Christmas morning. I'm just like, blah, like I'm not excited. Like in my head, I am. In my head, I'm glad to see she's happy, but you're not able to express yourself.
Right.
And I just started looking up these medications I was on. I was like, there's got to be a better way. And just being able to work out and the resources provided by Cal for me to get back in and do that, I don't take even half of that now.
Yeah.
I only take like 2 medications now. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I think it's got a lot to do with because I've been able to focus on my health and my fitness. And then with the extra activities, like the knowledge I've gotten from Cal has helped me with that and be able to pivot. Like before, I probably wouldn't have known hey, you got to pivot this workout style to this.
Yeah.
But the resources we have, especially after they changed our portal and stuff up.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Now I don't have to go online and Google these fitness magazines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, Phil Heath is a bodybuilder and he's telling me to do cardio. Okay.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, it's been a journey for sure. Facebook, we only post the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to what you said there, Todd. Thank you for sharing that with us. I have one last question I want to finish up with for you. What does it mean for you to be a Catch a Lift Fund veteran athlete?
It gives us an opportunity to not only work on ourselves, but change the stigma. A common thing we see in the veteran community is poor, pitiful me, I'm broken, help me. And a lot of times there's people who utilize that to the extent to where it's not beneficial to who we are as vets. I mean, all of us have voluntarily enlisted at some point in time. We did what we had to do while we served, whatever it may have been. And then we got out, and now we're trying to figure out how to blend back in.
Yeah.
And to me, it's being able to not only blend back in, but be seen as that honorable service person, whether you're a dude or a chick, and then being able to be fit at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one, because then they're like, oh, you must be brainwashed. I'm like, no, I enjoy feeling good.
Yeah.
That's it. So I think that's, to me, in a lot of words, that's what it means to me.
Oh, that's absolutely terrific. Thank you, Todd, for first of all, for your service to our great country. And thank you for being just such a great example for all of us, to look to for so many different reasons.
That's it for this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. We will return next Wednesday at 1 Eastern Time with another episode. Thank you to ID Technologies for their support of this Coach's Corner podcast. Thank you to Lynn Coughlin, Henry Pomper, and Kaylee Nasiri for all of the work you do to make this podcast possible week after week. And we thank the entire Catch a Lift team. Don't forget to join us every Wednesday live at 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for a chance to win Cal Swag and to chat with your brothers and sisters. Until next week, keep it real and stay Cal strong.